My son died 5 years ago, and for 60 straight months, I sent $600 on the dot because I was told I was paying off his debts. Then, last week, the bank called me. The woman on the line sounded careful, like she didn't want to scare an old man. "Sir," she said, "we've reviewed your son's records. He never had any debts with us. Not one." I gripped my kitchen counter so hard my knuckles went white. If my boy never owed a cent, then who had I been paying? And why did it take 5 years for the truth to find me? My name is Frank Dalton. I'm 68, widowed, and I thought I was doing the last decent thing a father could do. Tell me if you discovered your grief had been used as a paycheck. Would you stay quiet? And before I go on, where are you watching from? And what time is it there right now? I hung up, but I could still hear that sentence echoing in the kitchen like the sound of a pin dropping. "Sir, your son never had any debts." The coffee pot on the stove bubbled, but I didn't move. I gripped the edge of the stone counter and stared out at the backyard I'd just watered. The house was dead quiet, with only the wall clock counting each beat. My son, Caleb, died 5 years ago. Since he left, I've lived like a man paying off a debt to memory. I told myself, at least I can still do one last thing for him. Pay his debts for him. Keep his name clean. Let him rest. But now the bank says flat out, there was no debt at all. I pulled out a chair and sat down, my heart pounding hard enough to hurt. My eyes flicked to the right-hand drawer, where I kept everything important. Transfer receipts, dates written down, little notes in blue ink. 60 months. 60 transfers of exactly $600. I remembered every one, the way you remember a medication schedule. It all started after the funeral. I was still wearing a black suit, the collar rubbing my skin raw. A man named Drew came up to me in the church parking lot. He said he was Caleb's close friend. He hugged me, then whispered like he was afraid someone would hear. "Uncle Frank, Caleb left a few things behind. If we don't handle it, they'll make a big deal out of it. I can step in and settle it. You just need to transfer regularly, and I'll pay it for you. Keep it quiet." He handed me a thick stack of printed papers, numbers tangled all over the page. Back then, my mind felt covered in fog. I asked, "Why didn't he tell me?" Drew lowered his head, voice small. He was ashamed. He didn't want you to be disappointed. Then he added the one sentence that hit the weakest spot in me. "You love him, don't you?" So I believed him. I believed because I wanted to believe. That I could fix some part of something, even if it was only on paper. Drew said, $600 a month. A few years, and it'll be done, I promise. I lived by that promise. I cut back on everything. Put off fixing the roof, even though the corner of the storage room still leaked every time it rained. Skipped meetups with old friends. I didn't tell anyone, because I was ashamed. A father who, even at the end, still didn't know what his son was carrying. And Drew, every month, he texted. Just one short line, but it was enough to keep me going. "You're doing great, Uncle. I got it." Some months, he added a heart emoji. I looked at it and thought, at least someone is on the same side as my family. Until this morning, I opened the drawer. I'd clipped the receipts into neat stacks. I took them out and spread them across the dining table. On every sheet was the same chilling truth. I sent money to Drew. Not to the bank, not to any organization, just his name and an account number. I stood up and walked into the living room. On the mantel was a photo of Caleb on graduation day, grinning wide, his arm around my shoulder. I touched the frame. "I'm sorry," I rasped. "I let someone use you as an excuse." My phone buzzed. A text arrived at the perfect moment, like a slap. "Drew, Uncle, have you transferred this month yet? I need to submit it before the weekend." I stared at the screen for a long time. Heat ran up my spine, but this time it wasn't grief. It was clarity, sharp as a blade. I didn't reply right away. I took a deep breath, pulled a blank sheet of paper closer, and wrote a big line across the top, "Evidence." Then I listed, slowly, like driving nails. The bank confirmed there was no debt. 60 transfers of $600. Text messages confirming receipt. The stack of papers Drew handed me on the day of the funeral. I hadn't kept them, and that was the first mistake. But I wouldn't make any more mistakes. If Drew thought I was just an old man living alone, easy to scare, easy to cheat, then he picked the wrong person. I may be slow, but I'm not blind. and I won't let my son's name be used for one more day. Tell me, if a father discovers his pain has been turned into a steady payment for 5 years, could you swallow it and act like nothing happened? I couldn't sleep that night. Lying in bed, I listened to the wind rake through the gutters and the loose sheet metal clatter, reminding me of the leaking roof I'd put off fixing because of Caleb's debt. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the woman at the bank. There's no debt. That sentence didn't just tear apart a lie. It tore apart the way I'd been living for the last 5 years. Early in the morning, I made coffee but didn't drink it. I pulled out the evidence folder and did the only thing that calmed me down: organize. I photographed every receipt, saved them into a separate folder, then emailed copies to myself. I'm not good with technology, but I understand this. Keeping multiple copies in multiple places makes it harder for someone to erase the trail. Drew's message was still there, pushing, "By the weekend." I replied with a deliberately normal sentence. "Uncle had a transfer issue. Tomorrow I'll go do it again." He answered almost immediately, "Yes, Uncle, don't forget. Don't be late." They're pressuring me. Who are they? I wrote another line. Drew says there are they. I needed black and white proof from the bank. A phone call is one thing, but when this turns into an argument, anyone can claim I misheard. I changed my shirt, brought the stack of receipts, locked the door, and drove to the branch where Caleb used to bank. They took me into a small room. The woman from yesterday, her name was Grace, walked in with a file. She looked at me the way you look at an uncle who's just been pickpocketed. "Mr. Dalton, let me say this clearly again," she said slowly. "In the system, your son has no loans, no overdue cards, no collections file. After he passed, everything was handled and closed. If anyone told you that you had to pay a debt to the bank, that person is wrong." I set the stack of receipts on the table. "I transferred money," I said. $600 a month, for 5 years. Grace looked at the recipient name, and her face changed. "You transferred to an individual?" I nodded. She exhaled, then printed me a set of documents: account history, the account closure notice, and a page confirming there was no outstanding balance. She stamped and signed them. I held those papers with shaking hands, because at last I had something to stand on. On the way home, I stopped at a print shop and made 2 more sets. One set for the safe, one set to send to my daughter, Nora, in Denver. Nora is an accountant, her mind sharp as a knife. I'd planned to hide this so I wouldn't worry her. But this was no longer just my private matter. This was about someone using Caleb's name to squeeze money out of me. When I got home, I called Nora. She answered, her voice still sleepy. I said it straight. "Nora, I've been scammed. I need you to help me do this the right way." She was quiet for a few beats, then asked questions like an auditor. "Who? When? How did I transfer? Are there messages? Are there bank papers?" I answered everything. I didn't cry. I just told it. "If they dared to use Caleb's name like that," Nora said, her voice shaking with anger, "then they'll try to smear you with, 'Dad is confused' next. You have to keep everything, and absolutely do not meet that person alone." I opened the camera app, checked the storage, turned on autosave, then taped a note by the door. "Don't open the door without an appointment." I slid the bank papers into plastic sleeves, clamped tight like clamping bone. I looked at the front door, at the doorbell camera I installed last year. A thought flashed, cold and bright. If Drew comes here, I'll let him say the truth in front of the camera. Right then my phone buzzed. Drew was calling. I didn't answer. The ring stopped. Then a message appeared. "Uncle Frank, I'm near your house. Open the door. Let's talk clearly." I stood in the kitchen, watching the doorbell screen show Drew's face. He wore a dark jacket, a forced smile, like an insurance salesman. He rang again, eyes flicking around the porch, as if checking who might be listening. I didn't open the door. I pulled a chair up to the counter, set my folder neatly in front of me, and pressed the intercom button. "Drew, listen to me." He flinched, then smiled. "Uncle Frank, I was worried. I texted, and you didn't pick up. I stopped by to make it easier." "Not easy," I said. "I'm busy. Say what you need to say from there." His smile twisted slightly. "It's about the money. They're pushing. I'm afraid you forgot." I asked slowly. Who are they? Creditors. Who else? He shot back. You know that. Then give me the contract number, the company name, a phone number. Drew blinked. Uncle, why are you suddenly asking that? I stared straight at the screen. Because I went to the bank this morning. They said my son had no debt. The air outside went quiet for a beat. Drew glanced left, then right. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. Banks are sometimes slow to update. Those debts, they don't always show up in the system. No, I cut in. They printed it, stamped it, signed it, no debt. He softened his voice, fluffy as cotton. You're tense because you miss Caleb. Losing someone makes you confused. Just let me handle it like before. I kept my voice even. Where did the money I sent each month go? He shrugged. I received it and paid it for you. I gathered it. I negotiated. You don't want them calling, sending letters, suing. But nobody is suing, I said. There's no debt. So who are you paying? Drew started losing patience. You're doubting me? I helped you for 5 years. I let him talk, because the more he talked, the more he showed. Helped how? Say exactly what you helped with. He stepped closer to the camera, voice rough. You sent me money. I used that money to settle it. That's it. Settle what? A flash of anger sparked in his eyes. You keep asking. You want to make this a big deal? You're old, living alone. People will think you aren't all there. I went cold, but I didn't show it. Is that a threat? Drew sneered. I'm just telling the truth. Who do people believe? An old man or a younger person saying you misunderstood? I tightened my grip on my pen, then relaxed it. Did my son owe you anything? Drew hesitated. Caleb asked me for a few things. Private. Do you have paperwork? Not everything has paperwork, he snapped. I nodded. And the papers you gave me on the day of the funeral, where did you get them? Drew went silent. That silence was heavy as lead. I pressed again. Those papers were fake, weren't they? He exploded. You're difficult. I did it, so you'd pay. If you knew it was to help me, would you have given it? You loved your son, so you paid. I just borrowed it. My heart slammed. I spoke slowly, clearly. You just admitted fake papers and borrowed it. I recorded that. Drew went pale. He stared into the camera like he suddenly remembered it was recording. He stepped back, scrambling. Don't play games. Delete it. We're family. You're not family, I said. You're the one who used my son's name to take my money. He cursed, turned, and hurried off. As his car started, my phone buzzed. A new message popped up from an unknown number. You're making everything worse. Stop. I took a screenshot, noted the time, then sent it to Nora, along with the doorbell audio. She called back immediately. Dad, don't reply to unknown numbers. They want you scared. She told me to call a lawyer and file a report right away. I looked at the bank papers, the stack of receipts, and remembered what Drew said about being all there. I understood he would run to tell his version first, paint me as confused. So I had to move first. I grabbed my jacket, tucked the folder under my arm, and drove straight to the police station right now. I walked into the county police station with my folder clutched tight to my chest and said straight at the front desk, I want to report that I've been tricked into transferring money for years. I have documents. A middle-aged man came out to meet me. His nameplate read Detective Morales. He led me into a small room. I opened the folder and laid everything out in order. Bank confirmation, I said. No debt. Here are the statements. 60 transfers, 600 each time. Here are his texts confirming he received it. And here is the doorbell recording. He says, fake papers and borrowed it himself. Morales listened, and his eyes narrowed. How do you know Drew? He said he was my son's close friend. How did you send the money? Bank transfer. The timestamps are all there. Morales nodded, taking notes. This could be elder exploitation and fraud. But be prepared. He'll say you helped willingly, or that you're confused. Has he threatened you? I told him what Drew said about me not being all there, and the text from the unknown number. Morales replied flatly, You did the right thing coming here first. From now on, don't meet him alone. If he comes to your house, let the camera record. If you feel pressured, call 911. I signed the report. When I held the paper confirming the case had been opened, I realized I wasn't standing alone inside this story anymore. As soon as I left the station, Nora called. I told her. I filed the report. There's a detective assigned. Nora answered immediately. Go home. I'm booking a lawyer. Lock down every transfer order. That night, I canceled every scheduled transfer, changed my access codes, turned on extra security. I taped one sentence to the fridge, signed nothing without asking. The next morning, the attorney Nora recommended called me. Her name was Helen Park. She asked quick questions, then concluded, You have bank paperwork and a recorded admission. Good. Now you don't argue with words. You document screenshots, saved video, and a written log with times and dates. Right after that, my sister Marlene called. Tense. Frank, Drew called the whole family. He says you're imagining things because you miss Caleb. Says you're smearing him to get money back. He even said you should get your memory checked. I closed my eyes. He was building a stage before the police could touch him. I said, Look at this. I sent her the bank documents, the statements, and the audio clip. A few minutes later, she texted back, He's covering his tracks. I forwarded everything to Morales and Helen, including the unknown number message from yesterday. Helen texted back, Good. They're creating a "you're not competent" file to pressure you into signing or to strip your decision-making. Nora called again, telling me to stay away from the door, keep my phone ready, and don't let them pull me out onto the front porch. I turned on cloud, saving for the camera, and put the folder right next to my car keys, like a shield against being overwritten. The doorbell rang. On the screen, Drew stood on the porch, but this time he had another man with him, wearing a dress shirt, holding an envelope, and a clipboard. The man lifted the envelope toward the camera like a key. I remembered Helen's words, Don't open the door. I pressed the intercom. Who are you? What do you want? The man said, We have paperwork. You need to sign today. Drew stared straight into the camera and gave a thin smile. Just sign, Uncle, and it'll all be smooth. You don't want to embarrass your daughter, do you? My stomach tightened. This wasn't just about money. This was a fight over who gets to tell the story. I hit save on the doorbell video, then spoke clearly so the camera would catch every word. I will not sign anything without my lawyer. And everything you're saying is being recorded. Drew's smile shut off like a switch. I stood behind the door, my hand resting on the deadbolt as if it were the last line in the sand. On the doorbell screen, the man holding the envelope glanced at Drew, then knocked harder. Mr. Dalton, he said, this is a settlement agreement. Just sign, and it's over. I was go. What do you want me to sign? I asked through the speaker. Drew cut in, his sweetness fake. Uncle Frank, I only want to protect you. You sign, and it'll say you voluntarily supported me for a while. That's it. No investigation. Nobody bothering you. I looked straight into the camera and enunciated every word. I've filed a report. I have a lawyer. I'm not signing anything. Leave my property. The other man's tone changed. If you don't sign, this goes to court. Attorney fees. Your family. Your son's reputation. Can you handle that? I understood immediately. They weren't here to explain. They were here to shut me up. I called Nora and put her on speaker so everything would be recorded. Dad, don't open the door, Nora said. You just need to tell them to leave your property. If they don't, call the police. I did exactly that. I am telling you to leave my property. If you don't, I will call the police. I repeated it once more, calm, as if I were reading a posted sign. Drew sneered. Go ahead. Call them. They'll show up and say you're making a big deal. You're old. How do you remember anything clearly? I didn't argue. I dialed 911. The moment I started giving my address, Drew swore and pulled the other man back. The man shoved the envelope into his bag like he didn't want it captured on camera. They stepped off the porch just as a patrol car turned into the street. 2 officers got out. I opened the door, but only a crack. I showed them the doorbell video and said they came to pressure me to sign papers after I reported being scammed. The younger officer asked, Do you know who they are? I know the one named Drew, I said. I don't know the other man. Drew immediately put on a polite smile. We just came to help him understand paperwork. He's misunderstanding. I handed the officer the case confirmation from the station and attorney Helen Park's card. I won't sign anything without my lawyer, I said. The officer checked the papers, then turned to Drew. He's told you to leave. You need to leave now. Drew looked at me, his eyes cold. You're destroying Caleb's honor. I have witnesses. I have a story. I answered loud enough for the camera and the officers to hear. I have the truth, and I have paperwork. They left. Before getting into the car, Drew turned back and pointed at me through the glass like a promise. I shut the door, locked it, and dropped into a chair. My hands were shaking not because they raised their voices, but because I understood. He would come back, another way. My phone buzzed. A text from the unknown number. You just made the wrong move. Be careful. I took a screenshot and sent it to Morales and Helen. Then I opened the folder and wrote a new line in all caps. Next step. Make him talk in front of a judge. I called Helen. After she heard it, she only said, Good. They just created more evidence. She told me to keep a log, save the video in 2 places, and absolutely do not send angry texts to Drew. You'll message like someone who still believes, she said. Set a meeting in a public place. Let him talk more. I nodded. If I wanted to win clean, I had to let him dig the hole himself. I stared at the words, next step, in my notebook, like I was staring at an exit. I didn't want to win by arguing. I wanted to win with the one thing nobody can bend. Timestamps, signatures, recordings, and a confession. Helen told me to text Drew like someone still soft. I hated it, but I understood the rules. I wrote, Drew, I don't want to make this big. I just want clarity. Tomorrow, meet me at the diner on Route 9 at 10. Bring the debt paperwork. I'll listen. I sent it and set my phone down. Drew replied exactly a few minutes later. Fine, but you come alone. That sentence was a trail all by itself. I forwarded the message to Helen and Detective Morales. Morales called back. We'll set up surveillance. You just let him talk. Don't promise anything. Don't give him money. I said, I'll stay calm, but I need him to believe I can still be pressured. Nora called too. She said blunt, Dad, I can see Drew made big purchases right after you started sending money. This wasn't paying debt. He's been living off your money. My throat went dry when I heard that. I put on my gray coat, slipped the folder into my bag, and brought an empty envelope just so Drew would see it. Helen warned me. The envelope is bait. You don't hand over anything. I nodded. The diner on Route 9 was old and just busy enough. I chose a table by the window where the diner's camera had a clear view. At 10:02, Drew walked in, scanned the room, then sat across from me. Why are you so tense? He asked, sounding like family. If you'd signed that paper yesterday, it would have been done. I placed the envelope in the middle of the table. I want to see the debt paperwork, I said. You said someone is pressuring you, so show me. Drew smiled and pulled out his phone. You want paperwork? You sign first. Sign that you voluntarily helped me because Caleb owed me. Then I'll give you what you need. I leaned in and lowered my voice. What did Caleb owe you? Drew frowned, then let it slip. He owed me because he asked me to keep a few things quiet. He didn't want you to know. You don't want people digging into his past, do you? My heart hammered. He was still using my son's honor as a leash. I kept my voice even. You took $600 a month for 5 years. How long were you planning to take it? Drew looked at me like he was weighing me. Until it's enough, he said coldly. And if you ruin this, you'll lose more than money. Asa. Through the window, I saw a man outside pretending to check his phone. Morales was there. I took a deep breath, looked Drew straight in the eye, and said the line I'd prepared. Then say it plainly, Drew. How much do you want to stop? Drew curled his lip and leaned closer. 20 grand. Cash. Tomorrow. The back parking lot behind the supermarket on River Avenue. No lawyer, no cops. He tapped his finger on the empty envelope. You pay. I disappear. You don't pay. I'll say you gifted it voluntarily, and then I'll get the family to sign guardianship papers. You know what guardianship means? They'll decide for you. I nodded, pretending weak. Then I asked, like I was begging, so, what are Caleb's quiet things? He laughed, and I waited for him to say too much. I didn't ask anything more at the diner. I just nodded, like a man backed into a corner. Drew thought I was scared, so he spelled it out. Tomorrow, exactly 4. The back lot behind the supermarket on River Avenue. Cash. You come alone. It made my skin crawl, but in my head there was only one line. Let him talk. Let him lock himself in. When I got home, I called Helen and Detective Morales. I forwarded every message. Come alone. Cash. Guardianship. Helen said. You don't give him money. You show up at the right time, the right place. The rest is for the police, Morales said. Good. This is coercion and extortion. We'll catch him in the act. I backed up everything again. The doorbell video, the bank documents, the receipts, the screenshots of the texts. I wrote an event log down to the minute. It all sat inside a black, hardcover binder, the same stack of paper I used to think was only there to comfort me. Now it was armor. At 3:45 the next day, I drove to the supermarket on River Avenue. I parked under a security light, exactly where Morales told me. The envelope I brought held nothing but blank paper, but I left it visible on the passenger seat. A black pickup rolled into the back lot. Drew got out first, looking around like a thief. He texted, "Where are you?" I answered, "I'm here." He walked up, eyes glued to the envelope. "Where's the money?" he asked, no longer pretending to be polite. I stepped out and shut the car door slowly. "Before I hand anything over," I said, "I want to hear you say it again. What did you take my money for?" Drew gave a contemptuous laugh. "To live. You think I did that for fun for 5 years? You're old. You can't do anything." "My son didn't owe you a cent, did he?" I asked. He shrugged. "He's dead. Who's going to verify it? You keep paying, it stays quiet. You don't pay, I'll take away your right to decide. Guardianship. Understand?" Right then, a short siren chirped. 2 police vehicles slid out from the hidden access lane. Morales stepped out and raised his badge. "Drew Collins, you are under investigation for elder fraud and extortion. You have the right to remain silent." Drew's face went white. He took 1 step back, then turned on me, snarling, "You set me up." I looked him straight in the eye. "No," I said. "You said it yourself." An officer cuffed him. Drew's phone fell to the ground, the screen still open to our text thread. Morales photographed the scene, then said quietly, "That's enough, Mr. Dalton. You did the right thing." I stood in the middle of the lot, cold wind pushing through my collar, and somehow my chest felt lighter. For 5 years, I paid because of guilt. Today I stopped because of truth. I wasn't afraid of the phone ringing anymore. I was afraid of silence. I went home, set the binder on the table, looked at Caleb's photo, and whispered, "You can rest now. I brought the truth home." His eye. 3 weeks after the arrest in the parking lot, I sat again in the same kitchen where I'd once stood frozen by the bank's phone call. This time, the ticking clock didn't sound like an accusation. Detective Morales told me Drew was being held. They'd pulled data from his phone and accounts. Inside were messages he'd sent to other older people too, same script every time. Pay the debt of someone who's gone. I wasn't the only one. I was just the one who kept enough paperwork. Attorney Helen helped me file for restitution and request an asset freeze. I didn't feel smug. I just felt lighter, like setting down a sack of stones. Nora flew in for a weekend and held me tight. "Dad, you're not weak," she said. "You were exploited. I used the first money to fix the roof. No more bucket catching water in the storage room. I opened a savings account for my grandchild and wrote it clearly, tuition only. I also brought part of it to a senior support center, so they'd have a fund for legal counseling. One evening, I took Caleb's photo out to the porch and set it beside the planter he used to tend. I said softly, "You didn't owe anyone anything. I gave your name back." The wind moved through. The smell of damp soil pulled me back to when he was alive, and for the first time in 5 years, I could take a deep breath. My lesson: trust doesn't replace evidence. Keep receipts, save messages, back up in multiple places. And when something feels off, don't face it alone, get a lawyer and call the police. Where are you watching from? And what time is it where you are? And if it were you, if someone you knew used your pain to take your money, would you have the courage to stand up?